What's up, guys? Welcome back to my mentorship channel. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys the secret to obtaining big lines of credit. This here is my wallet, over $100,000 here in this wallet. Any big card that you can think of probably have it. Amex's, credit unions, Navy Federal, DCU, just got approved for this $10,000 Capital One card. So I have access to over $100,000 in credit lines. And today I'm gonna go over how you yourself can also get access to lines of credit just like these. So first, let's go over why credit limits matter. First things first is gonna be utilization, right? If I have access to a card with $1,000 on there, I spend $300 on that card, I'm already at 30% utilization. As you guys know, credit card utilization is going to make up 35% of your scores. The higher utilization is, the more you can expect your scores to kind of drop. They say after you utilize over 40% of a credit card, you're more than likely to add on a late payment or a collection on that account, right? So you want to make sure utilization stays low. And if you have low credit limits, it's going to be very hard. $1,000 credit card, I use 300, I'm already at 30%. But now imagine if I use $300 on a $20,000 credit card. My utilization isn't going to move like that. So I'll be able to use my cards more frequently without having to worry about utilization if I have access to bigger credit limits on my credit cards. And then two, it's also good to just have access to money. It's never going to be a bad thing to have access to money. I spoke to a business owner the other day and I told him, hey, listen, I can get you $50,000 on a credit card. And he said, I don't need $50,000. It's never about you needing it. It's always good to just have access to that, right? One thing I always heard someone say, it's always good to have access to money just in case an opportunity comes across or presents itself. You have the money to be able to invest into that opportunity, right? So it's always good to just have. You never know what kind of emergencies might come up. You never know what kind of opportunities will come across the table. It's not about you needing the money. It's always good to just have access to the capital just in case something presents itself, like a business move or an opportunity that can make you a lot of money. And then lastly, credit limits is just a leverage thing, right? If I have a $50,000 card or if I have $20,000, on a Capital One card, if I go to Discover and I try to get a credit card, right, when they pull my report and they look at my limits, if they see I have 20,000, I have 30,000, I have 40,000 in credit limits, they're not going to offer me $2,000. I have the leverage now that when I go to these banks and I'm applying for credit cards and I'm trying to open up new lines of credit, I'm going to get access to more because on my report, that's what I have, right? It's comparable. So those are the three big benefits when it comes to having big lines of credit. So let's go over how I started to get access to higher credit limits when it came to my credit cards. First things first, man, I started off with a secured card. So I went to a bank that I knew gave people a lot of money. And what I did was I got a secured card with them and I didn't put down 500, I didn't put down 1,000. I put a $2,000 into that card. And I knew before even applying that after 6 months of maintaining a healthy relationship with that credit company, they were going to offer me an unsecured credit card. Those are things I just spoke about with the branch in person. So I put $2,000 into the card and I built and I maintained that healthy relationship for 6 months. I kept my utilization low. I made sure all my payments were on time. I had auto pay on and I wasn't overspending. And then after 6 months of maintaining that healthy relationship, in the mail, I got an unsecured offer, meaning I get the $2,000 back that I deposited into that card, comes back into my account, and then they gave me a card with $8,000 on there. And that was pretty much the start of everything. So I invested money into my credit at first. I got a secured card, right? It's my first time establishing credit. The best way to establish credit is just using your cards, making your payments on time, and just building age on that credit card. So that's what I did, man. I put $2,000 into a card. I built that age out for 6 months, right? And got my $2,000 back after I accepted an unsecured offer. So that was the first thing, right? Investing into your credit, putting some money into a secured card, and just building that history for 6 months. Another trick that I would do was I would open up checking accounts with every single company I had a credit card with. And what I would do is I would make sure a lot of money is flowing through that account. So they can also see that I have proof of funds, right? Money's flowing into that account, $5,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month. It's just flowing into that account. I'm making sure I'm building up my deposits, and I was just opening up checking accounts with every single card that I had in my wallet. And I was just making sure, just money was flowing in through those accounts. I also made sure that with every credit card I was getting approved for, the reconsideration department was my first go, right? It was my first move. So most people, they go to the reconsideration department, they call the reconsideration department on their credit cards when they're denied. I was usually calling every time I got approved. And the reason I was calling was to try to increase my limit as much as possible. Let's say I went to Discover, you know, they gave me $8,000. What I would do is I'd call Discover. I'll be like, hey, you guys recently just approved me for $8,000. Can we get this limit up to $14,000? Can we get this limit up to $15,000? And based off my report, based off the cards in my portfolio, based on the money that I had moving through my accounts, I would always just try to push for an extra $5,000. And even if I didn't get, you know, an extra $5,000 on that limit, I might get 2, I might get 3, I might get 1,000, right? So every time I was getting approved for a card, I would always just call the reconsideration department. And as I was building age, as I was building my limits, as my scores were increasing, as I started to attain more leverage and I started to add more cards into my wallet, my card limits just would increase as time went on. Lastly, I always focused on credit mix as well. Credit mix makes up about 10% of your score, right? But this is something that banks are always looking at. They don't just want to see credit cards on your credit report. They also want to see a mixture of accounts. They want to see auto loans. They want to see home loans. They want to see secured loans. So not only was I just getting, you know, applying for credit cards, I was also going out there and opening up secured loans. I was adding my rent on my credit report with rentreporters.com. I would backdate those rent payments 2 years, right? And now I have 2 years of history of me paying rent on my credit report. I had accounts on my credit report like creditstrong.com. I had Kickoff, I had Self, right? And then I had a mixture of credit cards as well. So I made sure I also had great credit mix. So when I go to these banks and I say, hey, listen, I want to get a $20,000 credit card, I want a $10,000 credit card, I had the leverage to do so because I had a mixture of a bunch of different accounts. I was starting to increase my limits on all these cards. My payment history was good. And with these secured loans, I was also building up my credit score. So my scores never touched under 750. I had great scores, great history. My limits were starting to increase. And like I said, I had a mixture of different accounts. These are just things that I was doing. And I would age all my accounts for years, right before I even went and I applied for 4 to 5 more cards. But I was really just focused on investing and building my credit. I was adding trade lines on my report, just putting a lot of money into building my portfolio, my credit report. So when I go to these banks and I'm applying for cards and I want 10,000, I want 20,000, they're not going to give me a hard time to do so because I've invested so much money into my credit with secured cards, with unsecured accounts, with loans, a bunch of different credit cards, and just, you know, stacking up wins. That was really like the goal for me. So you too can also get access to bigger lines of credit, higher credit limits if you just know how to build your report and you invest money into your credit, you know, accounts or credit reports. So that's my secret when it comes to getting access to high credit limits on my credit report. It's just different ways to invest into your credit that it won't pay off right now, but as you start to build these accounts, as you start to add age and put more money into your credit report, over the years, it'll really pay off. Like when I first started, I was only getting secured offers. And as I started to invest more, as I started to age these accounts, add more, you know, different types of accounts on my credit report, my scores just started to get better. My credit report started to look better and my credit limits also increased. So if you go out there and invest into your credit report, you will also be able to have access to the same exact result. And Get Busy Rule checking out. Hopefully you guys also get access to high credit limits just like me.